Ambassador Kethra Voss had attended 642 sessions of the Galactic Concord. She remembered each one. Her species did not forget. The Solari recorded everything in the deep folds of their hive memory, passing knowledge from generation to generation, like humans passed blood. This session would be different. She did not know that yet. The chamber was vast, 12,000 seats arranged in a spiral that climbed toward a ceiling of living crystal. Light filtered through in colors that most species could not see. The Solari saw all of them. The humans saw almost none. That was the problem with humans, Kethra thought. They were blind to so much. She watched the Earth delegation enter. 5 of them. Small group. They always sent small groups, as if they did not understand that numbers meant power in this chamber. The woman in front was Sarah Chen, human ambassador, 43 years old by their count. Young. So young. The Solari did not give anyone a voice in government until they had lived at least 2 centuries. Children, Kethra thought. Violent, emotional children. The session began with trade agreements, mineral rights, shipping lanes, boring matters that kept the galaxy running. Kethra felt her attention drift in the way of her kind. Part of her mind listened, part of her mind touched the hive link, feeling the thoughts of her sisters across a dozen star systems. Then came the vote. The matter of human expansion into the Vega corridor. The Concord had discussed this for 3 cycles. Humans bred fast, they spread faster. They wanted the Vega corridor for new colonies. The Concord wanted them contained. Kethra voted for containment. So did the Kryn. So did the Methadar. So did 11 other species. The math was simple. Humans were too new, too hungry, too unpredictable. Let them grow slowly. Let them learn their place. The vote passed. Containment measures approved. Ambassador Chen stood to speak. The losing party could make a statement for the record. Kethra prepared to half-listen. Then a human aide crossed the chamber floor. He moved fast, not running, something worse than running. The kind of walk that said the body wanted to run, but the mind would not let it. He reached Chen, leaned close, whispered something. Kethra watched. Chen's face changed. Among the Solari, emotion lived in the movement of antennae, in the chemical signals that passed between bodies. Humans wore their feelings on their skin. Kethra had learned to read them. She saw Chen's expression go through 3 phases. Confusion, understanding, nothing. That 3rd phase troubled her. The aide handed Chen a data tablet. Chen looked at it for 11 seconds. Kethra counted. Then Chen handed it back. "I need to confirm this," Chen said. Her voice was steady. Too steady. The aide nodded. "Confirmed, Ambassador. The Concord containment fleet engaged 2 hours ago. 37 colony ships, all destroyed. No survivors." The chamber went quiet. Kethra felt her thorax tighten. This was not the plan. The containment measures had not yet taken effect. The fleet was supposed to redirect the colony ships, turn them back. No one had authorized destruction. "How many?" someone asked. One of the Methadar representatives. His voice was high with alarm. The aide looked at his tablet. 2,300,000 civilians, colonists, families. The number hung in the air like smoke. Kethra looked at Chen. The human ambassador had not moved, had not spoken. She stood at her podium like a statue. Her hands rested flat on the surface. Her eyes were open. Her face showed nothing. This was wrong. Humans were emotional creatures. They screamed. They wept. They threw things and made threats and stormed out of chambers. Kethra had seen it many times. She had prepared for it. She had not prepared for silence. The Arbiter Prime spoke. Old Seleth, eldest of the eldest, his voice like wind through dry leaves. "This action was not sanctioned by the Concord. We will investigate. We will find those responsible." Chen looked up. "The fleet commander," she said. "I want a name." Seleth hesitated. "Ambassador, this is not a name." The word cracked through the chamber like breaking ice. Kethra flinched. She could not help it. Something in the human's voice had changed. Something had come awake, behind those mammal eyes. Selith provided the name. Fleet Commander Torveth Cax of the Kryn hegemony. Chen wrote it on a small piece of paper, folded it once, twice, placed it in the pocket of her jacket. Then she smiled. Kethra had seen human smiles before. They usually showed teeth in a way that was meant to signal friendliness. This smile showed teeth too. It did not signal friendliness. "Thank you for your time," Chen said. "Earth will be in touch." She turned, walked toward the exit. Her delegation followed. The Kryn ambassador stood. "You cannot simply leave. There are procedures. Formal protests must be filed through proper channels." Chen stopped. She did not turn around. "We just watched you murder 2 million of our people," she said. "Children, families, people who never held a weapon in their lives, and you want to talk about procedures?" "It was not murder. It was containment. You were warned about expansion. You did not listen. Actions have consequences." Chen turned then, slowly. The movement reminded Kethra of something, a predator she had seen once in a nature archive. A Terran animal called a wolf. The way it turned to face a threat. No wasted motion. No fear. "Yes," Chen said. "They do." She walked out. The chamber erupted. Voices layered over voices. Accusations and denials. Demands for investigation. Calls for calm. Kethra sat through all of it, but she was not truly listening. She was thinking about the paper. Such a small thing. A name written on folded paper, placed in a pocket like a promise. The Solari had a memory that stretched back 40,000 years. They had seen species rise and fall. They had watched empires burn and new ones grow from the ashes. They had learned to recognize patterns. This felt like a pattern. Kethra touched her thorax. The chitin there felt strange, tight, uncomfortable, like something was crawling beneath the surface. Her species had no word for this feeling. They had never needed one. They were not prey. They had not been prey for 100,000 generations. But somewhere deep in her cells, in the genetic memory that all living things carried from the time before time, something was waking up, something that remembered what it felt like to be hunted. She did not sleep that night. For the first time in her long life, Ambassador Kethra Voss was afraid of the dark. She did not know what was coming. None of them did. But the dark knew, and it was patient. 3 months passed. The galaxy waited for human rage, human threats, human tears broadcast across every frequency, begging for justice, demanding action. Nothing came. Earth went quiet. Fleet Admiral Yuan Xiaoming stood at the window of his office in Geneva. Snow was falling. He had not seen snow in 8 years. His last posting had been on Mars, where water fell as rust-colored dust, and the sky never changed from pink to white. He missed Mars. He missed the simplicity of frontier life. Out there, problems were problems. Cold was cold. You fixed things, or you died. Here, problems wore suits and spoke in diplomatic language, and murdered 2 million people, and called it containment. His tablet beeped. Another message from the Concord. They had been sending messages for 11 weeks. Offers, apologies, requests for dialogue. The humans had not responded to a single one. Yuan deleted the message without reading it. His aide appeared in the doorway. Lieutenant Commander Obi, young woman, Nigerian, smart. She had lost a brother on those colony ships. "The vote is in," she said. Yuan turned. "Unanimous?" "Unanimous." He let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. "All of them? Every nation, every government, every territory." Obi's voice cracked slightly. "All of them, sir. For the first time in 400 years. Yuan nodded. He walked to his desk and opened a drawer. Inside was a document. Old paper. Real paper. They had printed it that way on purpose. Some things needed to be physical. Some things needed weight you could hold in your hands. The Declaration of Total Response. He had written the first draft himself. Then the diplomats had gotten hold of it. Then the lawyers. Then the generals and the politicians. and the grieving parents, and the angry children. By the end, every word had been fought over. Every comma had been earned. The document said many things in its 12 pages, but it came down to one idea: no limits. Humanity had spent centuries building rules for war, laws about who you could kill and how, treaties about weapons that were too terrible to use, agreements about civilians and prisoners, and the proper way to end a conflict. They had built these rules for themselves, to protect themselves from what they could become. Humans knew what humans were capable of. They had seen it in the trenches of the Somme, in the ashes of Hiroshima, in the mass graves of 100 different genocides. The rules were a cage, a necessary cage, a cage that said we are better than our worst instincts. The Concorde had not known about the cage. They had seen human wars and thought humans were weak because they followed rules. They had not understood. The rules were not weakness. The rules were the lock on a door that should never be opened. Ewan signed the document. His hand was steady. His heart was not. "Begin the recall," he said. The order went out across every human channel, every frequency, every colony and station and ship. Come home. All of you, come home. Within 6 weeks, every human outside the Sol system had returned. Merchants, scientists, diplomats, tourists, teachers, students, all of them. The galaxy watched this happen and grew confused. This was not how conquered species behaved. This was not surrender. Surrender looked like negotiation, like compromise, like slow acceptance of inferior status. This looked like a family gathering for a funeral, or for something worse. The shipyards activated, all of them. Every orbital dock, every construction platform, every factory that could be converted. The economy of Earth shifted like a great beast rolling over in its sleep. Ewan visited the primary dock 3 weeks into production. They had renamed it. Used to be Armstrong Station. Now it was called Remembrance Dock. Ships filled the black. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Not just military vessels, cargo ships, mining haulers, passenger liners, anything with an engine and a hull. His aide walked beside him. "The Concorde sent another message, sir. They are offering to hand over Fleet Commander Torvith for trial." One man. "Yes, sir." Ewan watched a cargo ship detach from the dock. It was old, battered. The kind of ship that usually hauled ore between asteroid stations. Now it was loaded with something else. "They think we want revenge," Ewan said. "Don't we?" He was quiet for a long moment. "No," he said. "Revenge is personal. Revenge is heat. What we want is colder than that." "What do we want, sir?" Ewan thought about the names. 2,300,000 names. He had tried to read them all. He had made it through 40,000 before his eyes stopped working, and his throat closed up, and his aide had found him on the floor of his office at 3 in the morning. Not crying, just empty. "We want them to understand," he said. "We want them to know exactly what they did, not because they broke laws or violated treaties, because they killed people who had names, families, futures." He turned to face Obi. Her eyes were hard. The grief in them had frozen into something else over these months. He recognized it. He saw it in every human he met now. "They think we were at peace because we evolved past violence," Ewan said. "They think we learned to be gentle. They are wrong. We learned to be terrified of ourselves. We built walls around our own nature because we knew what happens when those walls come down." He looked back at the fleet. Always growing. Now they have given us permission to stop being afraid. A message arrived on his tablet. Priority channel. He opened it. Ambassador Chen. She was on her way to the station. She had something for him. A piece of paper. Ewan closed the message. He knew what was on that paper. A name. The first name. There would be more. "How many ships are we building?" Obi asked. Ewan almost smiled. Almost. All of them. The silence continued. 9 more weeks. The galaxy grew comfortable. Surely the humans had accepted their place. Surely they were rebuilding behind their borders, learning to live with their grief. A Concord spy drone slipped past the human defense network. It was a good drone, advanced, nearly undetectable. It recorded 17 hours of footage before a human patrol caught it. The footage was delivered to Concord Intelligence. An analyst named Veth3 reviewed it. He was a Methadar. Calm species, logical. They did not feel fear the way mammals did. Veth3 watched the footage. He saw the ships. He ran the numbers. He calculated production rates and resource allocation and projected fleet sizes. Then he put in a transfer request. He wanted to move to a monastery world, somewhere quiet, somewhere far from the borders. Request denied. Veth3 watched the footage again. He could not stop watching it. The humans were not building a fleet. They were building a wall of metal and fire and rage. Every ship was a bullet. Every factory was a gun. Every human hand that touched a tool was loading a weapon that the galaxy had never seen before. Veth3 had studied human history. He knew about their wars. Small things, limited things, fought with rules and pauses and negotiations. This was not that. This was something older. Something from before humans learned to be civilized. Something they had locked away in the basement of their collective memory and tried to forget. The door was open now, and something was climbing out. Ship Captain Torveth of the Kryn hegemony had held the Arcturus checkpoint for 19 years. His scales were gray now, marked with the ritual scars of 43 combat victories. His ship, the Dominance of Purpose, was the finest warship in the hegemony fleet. He was not worried about the humans. His species had been warriors for 8,000 years. They had conquered 11 systems before the Concord taught them the value of peace. They were the galaxy's sword. When the Concord needed force, they called the Kryn. Humans were soft, weak. They fought among themselves like animals. They had rules about war that made no sense. They cried over their dead instead of honoring them. Torveth had given the order to destroy those colony ships. He had not hesitated. Containment required examples. The humans needed to understand that the galaxy had teeth. Now they were coming. Finally, after 6 months of silence, human ships had been detected moving toward the checkpoint. How many? Torveth asked. His tactical officer checked the sensors. 47 vessels, ship captain. Mid-size, mixed configuration. Torveth clicked his jaws in amusement. 47 ships. He had 300. This was not a war fleet. This was a gesture, a statement. The humans were making a show of resistance before they surrendered. Standard formation, he ordered. Let them see our numbers. Let them understand what they face. The Kryn fleet spread into the Fang pattern. 300 ships, arranged in a crescent of gleaming metal and weapons platforms. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. Lesser species had surrendered at the sight of it. The human ships kept coming. Torveth watched the display. The humans were not slowing. They were not spreading into defensive positions. They were not hailing with demands or threats. They were accelerating. Ship captain, his tactical officer said. His voice had changed. Their speed is increasing. They will reach weapons range in 4 minutes. Prepare to fire on my command. Sir, their speed is still increasing. They are approaching, ship captain, they are approaching light speed. Torveth felt the first flicker of uncertainty. FTL engines did not work like that. You jumped or you did not. You could not accelerate gradually into faster-than-light travel. The physics would not allow it. Unless you were not planning to complete the jump. Evasive action, Torveth roared. All ships, break formation, now. Too late. The first human ship hit the hegemony flagship, Eternal Conquest, at 97% of light speed. The math was simple. Mass times velocity squared, Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. The humans had turned Einstein into a weapon. The eternal conquest did not explode. It ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next moment there was light. Pure white light that burned across every sensor in the fleet. Torveth threw his arm across his eyes, but he could still see it. The light was inside his skull, inside his bones. When his vision cleared, 34 of his ships were gone. The tactical display was screaming. Alerts everywhere, damage reports, casualties. His officers were shouting orders, but he could not hear them. His ears were ringing. His hearts were pounding. What? He tried to speak. His mouth would not work. What was that? His tactical officer was shaking. The Kryn did not shake. They were warriors. They did not feel fear. They used their ships as weapons, ship captain. They accelerated to near light and detonated their drive cores on impact. The energy release was, he checked his console. His hands were trembling, equivalent to a small star, sir. Torveth stared at the display. 47 human ships had attacked. 47. They had destroyed 34 Kryn warships. The math did not work. The humans should have died. All of them. Survivors? He asked. Human survivors? None detected, sir. But what? More contacts, ship captain, coming through the checkpoint. Torveth looked at the display. His blood went cold. More ships, hundreds of them. But these were not warships. These were cargo haulers, mining vessels, transport ships, civilian craft with no weapons, no armor, no military purpose. They were accelerating. They are all weapons, Torveth whispered. The second wave hit. A cargo ship packed with asteroid rubble struck a Kryn destroyer. The destroyer vanished. A mining hauler targeted a weapons platform. Gone. A passenger liner, empty, automated, filled with nothing but mass, drove itself into a cruiser at the speed of light. There was no battle. There was only mathematics. The humans had looked at the galaxy's weapons, the plasma cannons and missile systems and energy shields, and they had laughed. They did not need better weapons. They needed different physics. They needed the willingness to turn everything into a bomb. Torveth gave the order to retreat. His remaining ships scattered. Some made it, most did not. The human vessels did not chase them. They did not need to. They simply picked targets and accelerated. 73 Kryn warships escaped the Arcturus checkpoint. Out of 300. Torveth was among the survivors. He sat in his command chair and watched the light of dying ships fade on his display. His scales were pale. His claws had left marks in the armrests of his chair. He had been a warrior for 60 years. He had never seen anything like this. This was not war. War had rules. War had victory conditions and surrender protocols and ways to end the killing. This was a species that had decided to stop pretending. "Send a message to Hegemony Command," he said. His voice was empty. "What message, ship captain?" Torveth thought about the colony ships. 2 million humans, families, children. He had ordered their deaths without hesitation. He had called it containment. He had called it necessary. Now he understood something. The humans had not been weak because they fought with rules. They had been holding back. They had been protecting the galaxy from themselves. And the galaxy had thanked them by murdering their children. 3 words, Torveth said. They are all weapons. The message went out, across the hegemony, across the Concord, across every channel and frequency and relay station. 3 words that changed everything. The humans were not fighting a war. They were teaching a lesson, and the tuition was paid in blood. More fleets moved to stop them. The Methadar sent their fastest ships. The Solari sent their drone swarms. The Concord assembled the largest military force in galactic history. It did not matter. Every human ship was a weapon. Every piece of debris was a bullet. Every asteroid they passed became a threat. They did not need to win battles. They needed to make the galaxy understand that there was no winning. There was only cost. and humanity had already paid more than anyone could afford. The advance continued, system by system, checkpoint by checkpoint. The humans did not occupy territory. They did not demand surrender. They simply moved forward, unstoppable, patient, cold. Torveth survived the war. Many did not. He spent the rest of his life telling the story to young Kryn warriors. They did not believe him at first. Humans were soft, they said, weak. He showed them his scars. He showed them the recordings. He showed them the light of dying ships. They are sleeping. They built a civilization to keep themselves asleep. They wrote laws and treaties and rules to make sure they never woke up. What happens when they wake up? A young warrior asked. Torveth looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity waited. Quiet again. Peaceful again. The cage rebuilt. The door closed. But never locked. Everything burns, he said. Everything burns, and the ashes remember. Arbiter Prime Seleth was old. Older than most species could count. His people had been ancient when the Kryn were still crawling through swamps. They had guided the galaxy for 40,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. He had thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The Concord chamber was full. Every species, every representative, 17 governments had demanded this emergency session. The Kryn were losing, not just losing, being erased, system by system, fleet by fleet. The humans showed no signs of stopping. "We must negotiate," the Solari ambassador said, Kethra Voss. Seleth remembered her from the session 6 months ago. She looked different now, older, tired. Something in her had changed. "The humans do not respond to our communications," the Methadar delegate replied. "Then we must try harder. We must offer." "What?" The Kryn representative slammed his fist on the console. His name was Verath. He was young, angry. His brother had died at the Arcturus checkpoint. "What can we offer them? They do not want territory. They do not want resources. They do not want anything we have." Seleth raised a thin hand. The chamber went quiet. Even the youngest species knew to listen when an Arbiter Prime spoke. "I will contact them," he said. The representative stared at him. The Arbiter Prime did not involve himself in negotiations. He observed, he guided, he did not lower himself to speak with lesser species. But these were not normal times. "They may not respond," Kethra said. "They will respond to me." He was right. Within 6 hours, a connection was established. The human fleet admiral appeared on the main screen of the Concord chamber. Yuan Xiaoming. His face was calm. His eyes were not. Seleth had seen those eyes before. Once, long ago. A species called the Vorath had risen against the Concord. They had fought without rules, without limits, without mercy. They had taken 11 species with them into extinction before they were stopped. The humans had those eyes now. "Admiral Yuan," Seleth said, "I am Arbiter Prime Seleth. I speak for the Galactic Concord." "I know who you are." "Then you know I have the authority to make offers. Real offers. Binding offers." "I am listening." Seleth took a slow breath. His species did not breathe the way others did. Their bodies processed energy directly from starlight. But he had learned the gesture. It communicated sincerity. "We offer full reparations. Territory in any system you desire. Resources. Technology. The complete recognition of humanity as a senior species with permanent Concord membership." Yuan's face did not change. "And," Seleth continued, "the execution of Fleet Commander Torveth Kax. Public. Broadcast to every system. Justice for your dead." The chamber held its breath. Yuan was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a piece of paper. Folded. Old. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. "I do not. Ambassador Chen gave it to me, the day after your fleet murdered our people. She had written a name on it, the fleet commander who gave the order." Yuan unfolded the paper. "This is where it started." He set the paper aside. Now let me show you where it ends. He pulled out another stack of papers, thick, heavy. Seleth's visual receptors were sharp enough to see that every page was covered in text, names, thousands of them. There were 2,300,000 people on those colony ships, Ewan said. I am going to read their names. The Kryn representative stood. We do not have time for... Sit down. Ewan did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Something in those two words made Verath sink back into his seat like a child caught misbehaving. You will listen, Ewan said. All of you. You will hear their names, every single one, and then I will tell you our terms. He began to read. Abara Kenji, age 7, born on Luna Colony. His parents were teachers. Seleth watched the representatives shift in their seats. Abrams, Sonia, age 34, botanist. She was going to study alien plant life. The names continued, minute after minute, hour after hour. Ewan's voice never wavered. He did not pause for water. He did not rest. He simply read. Benson Michael, Chen Wei, Delacroix Marie, Fernandez Carlos. By the third hour, some representatives had left. They returned. They could not stay away. Something held them. By the 6th hour, Kethra Voss was weeping. The Solari did not weep. Their bodies could not produce tears, but something was leaking from her eyes, a clear fluid. Her thorax shook with sounds that had no name in her language. By the 9th hour, even Verath was silent. His scales had gone pale. His claws were pressed against his head like he was trying to block out the words. By the 11th hour, the chamber was full again. Word had spread. Representatives from every species had come to witness. They stood in the aisles. They crowded at the doors. They listened. Yamamoto Hideo, age 12. He wanted to be a pilot. Young Sarah, age 41, nurse. She had 3 children waiting for her on Earth. Age 29, newlywed. Her husband was on a different ship. He is one of the people coming for you. Yuan set down the last page. 11 hours, 41 minutes, 2,300,000 names. The chamber was silent. Now, Yuan said, here are our terms. He pulled out another list, shorter. The fleet commander who gave the order is already dead. Your offer came too late. We found him, but he was only one man. He did not act alone. Yuan began to read again, different names this time. Concord representatives, military officers, politicians, bureaucrats, everyone who had voted for containment, everyone who had looked the other way, everyone who had said the words acceptable losses. These people will die, Yuan said. You can give them to us, or we will come get them. There is no negotiation. There is no alternative. You have 72 hours. Seleth stared at the screen. His ancient mind tried to find a path forward, a compromise, a way to save face. There was none. And if we refuse? He asked. Yuan looked at him. 40,000 years of wisdom, countless species guided through peace and war. Seleth had never felt small before. He felt small now. Then we keep coming, Yuan said, until there is nothing left to come for. The screen went dark. The chamber erupted. Voices, screams, demands, denials. The Solari demanded the list be rejected. The Kryn demanded war to the end. The Methadar demanded a vote. Seleth sat in his chair and said nothing. He was thinking about the Vorath, the species that had burned 11 others before they were stopped. They had fought for territory, for survival. The humans were not fighting for any of those things. They were fighting for names, for 2 million people who would never breathe again, for the idea that every life had weight, and that weight could not be balanced with politics, or apologies, or offers of territory. The Concord had miscalculated. They had seen humanity's internal wars and thought them weak, fractured, controllable. They had not understood. Humans did not fight because they were broken. They fought because they refused to stay broken. And when they fought together, When they pointed all that violence in the same direction, there was no force in the galaxy that could stop them. Seleth made his decision. "Give them the names," he said. The chamber went silent. "Arbiter Prime, give them the names, all of them, every person on that list." "We cannot simply." "We can," Seleth said, "or we can die. Those are our choices." He looked at the representatives. His old eyes held no judgment, only exhaustion. "The humans have reminded us of something we forgot, something we should never have forgotten." "What?" Kethra asked. Seleth thought about 2 million names, about 11 hours of listening, about the look in a human admiral's eyes. "Never start a war you are not willing to finish, and never fight an enemy who has already decided they have nothing left to lose." The vote was held. The names were provided. One by one, the people on the list were handed over. Some went quietly. Some tried to run. It did not matter. The humans found them all. The war ended not with a victory, but with a lesson. And the galaxy would never forget it. The last name on the list was delivered on a Thursday. Kethra Voss was there when it happened. She had not been required to attend. No Silari had. But she came anyway. She stood in the observation gallery of the Concord station and watched the human ship dock. The man they brought was a bureaucrat, middle-level administrator for the Kryn Military Logistics Division. He had signed the order that rerouted supplies to the containment fleet. Without his signature, the ships would not have had fuel. Without fuel, 2 million humans would still be alive. He did not think of himself as a murderer. He had told the tribunal that. He had just been doing his job, following procedures. He had not known what the supplies would be used for. The humans did not care. Kethra watched them take him away. The bureaucrat was crying, begging. The humans were silent. They put him on the ship. The ship departed. She never learned what happened to him. None of them did. The humans did not broadcast executions. They did not make examples. They simply collected the names and disappeared. That was somehow worse. Kethra returned to her quarters and sat in the dark for a long time. Her thorax still itched. It had not stopped itching since that first session 8 months ago. She knew what the feeling was now. Her species had learned a new word: fear. They had added it to their language, a borrowed word from the Kryn. It did not translate perfectly. Nothing translated perfectly when it came to humans. Ship Captain Torveth survived. Many did not consider this a kindness. He retired from military service. There was nothing left to command. The Kryn fleet was a shadow of what it had been. Rebuilding would take generations. He spent his days in a small house on his homeworld, watching the sky. Sometimes young warriors came to ask him about the war. They wanted to know what humans were really like. They wanted to understand. He never knew what to tell them. "They are like us," he said once. "That is what we failed to understand. They have the same capacity for violence, the same willingness to kill, the same hunger for victory. We thought we were the warriors of the galaxy. We were wrong." Then how did they beat us? Torveth thought about the question for a long time. "They hate war," he said finally. "They hate it more than we do. They built their entire civilization around the idea of avoiding it. Laws, treaties, rules, all of it designed to keep them from doing what they are capable of." "That sounds like weakness." "No." Torveth's old eyes were distant. "That is the opposite of weakness. They are strong enough to restrain themselves. We never learned that. We never had to. We were proud of our violence. They were afraid of theirs." "Why?" "Because they know what happens when they stop holding back." The young warrior did not understand. Torveth did not expect him to. Understanding would come later, when the warrior was old, when he had seen enough to know that the most dangerous enemy was not the one who wanted to fight. It was the one who did not. Arbiter Prime Seleth did not retire. His species did not believe in retirement. They served until they died. But he stepped back from direct involvement in Concord affairs. He spent his final centuries in the archives, studying history, human history specifically, their wars, their genocides, their endless cycle of violence and recovery. He found patterns, terrible patterns. Humans had done to themselves what they did to the Kryn, worse, in some cases. They had built weapons capable of destroying their own world. They had used them. They had rebuilt. They had done it again. More dangerous. The Concord had awakened something old, something that humans had spent millennia trying to forget. The galaxy had reminded them that they were predators, that beneath the civilization and the art and the law, there was something hungry, something patient. Seleth wrote a single document before he died. It was classified at the highest level. Only Arbiter Primes were allowed to read it. The document contained one recommendation: never give humanity a reason to remember what they are. David Okonkwo was 19 years old when the war ended. He had enlisted the day after his sister's name was read. Amara Okonkwo, age 23, marine biologist. She had been on one of the colony ships. She had wanted to study alien oceans. David had trained for 7 months. He had learned to fight, to shoot, to kill. He had prepared himself for war. The war ended before his unit deployed. He was not sure how to feel about that. Relief, maybe? Or disappointment? Or something in between that did not have a name. Now he stood on the observation deck of a station orbiting Mars. The red planet filled the window. Earth was a small blue dot in the distance. Home, or what was left of it. The station was quiet. Most of the military personnel had been discharged. The shipyards were shutting down. Humanity was returning to normal, whatever normal meant now. David heard footsteps behind him. He turned. An alien. Solari. Young. Female, if he was reading the thorax markings correctly. She wore the uniform of a diplomatic attaché. Her antenna twitched in that way that meant nervousness. "May I join you?" she asked. David shrugged. "Free station." She stood beside him. They looked at the stars together. Neither spoke for a long time. "My name is Kethri," she said finally. "I am new to the diplomatic service." "David." "I know." She paused. "I read the names. All of them. I found yours. Okonkwo, David, you lost a sister." David's jaw tightened. "Yeah. I am sorry." "Are you?" The question was not kind. David knew that. He did not care. Kethri was quiet for a moment. Her antennae drooped. "I do not know," she admitted. "My people did not kill her. We did not give the order. We only voted. We only said yes when others said yes. We only followed procedures. Procedures killed 2 million people." "I know." Her voice cracked. "I know that now." David looked at her. She was young, probably younger than him, in relative terms. She had not made the decisions that led to the war. She had only inherited the consequences. Like him. "Why are you here?" he asked. "I wanted to understand. My people have learned a new word, because of your species. Fear. We did not have it before. Now we do." She turned to face him. "But I do not want to be afraid. I want to understand. Why did you stop?" David frowned. "What? You were winning. Your fleets could have taken everything. The Concord was collapsing. You could have conquered the galaxy. But you stopped. You went home. You closed your borders." Her antennae twitched. "Why?" David thought about the question. He thought about his sister, floating in space somewhere, frozen, forgotten. He thought about the names. All those names. "We did not want everything," he said. "Then what did you want?" "We wanted you to understand something." "What?" David turned to look at her, tired. 19 years old, and ancient. "We are not the monsters," he said. "We are what monsters are afraid of. And we really, really do not want to be. So do not make us." Kethri stared at him. Her thorax itched. That new feeling. Fear. But there was something else now. Something underneath the fear. Respect, maybe. or recognition. The understanding that the creature standing beside her was not an enemy, not a friend, something more complicated. A warning. "I will remember," she said. David nodded. He turned back to the window. Good. He walked away. His footsteps echoed in the empty corridor. Kethri watched him go. She stood there for a long time, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, 2 million names floated in the dark. 2 million reasons why the galaxy would never forget. The humans went home. They closed their borders. They went quiet again. But they did not lock the door. They never locked the door. And the galaxy learned to be very, very careful about knocking. Years later, Kethri rose through the diplomatic ranks. She became an ambassador, then a senior advisor, then something more. She never forgot that conversation on the observation deck. She never forgot the look in a 19-year-old human's eyes. Old, tired, dangerous. She made it her life's work to ensure that no one ever gave humanity another reason. Some called her paranoid, overcautious, weak. She did not argue. She just showed them the recordings, the names, the light of dying ships. And they understood. The lesson had been taught. The galaxy had learned. And in the silence between